What's up everybody and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. Now, it took me a little while to get to this because I didn't want to rush it. And it might be a strange thing to say since this game has been out since 2011 and it was a marvel back then, but I didn't want to rush the second playthrough. Now, one of the reasons that I decided to take my time with this game was to give a real review to see if this remaster of Skyrim is worth it. And I gotta tell you guys, it is totally worth it. I don't know, it felt like I was back home again, and I'll explain why. As we know, back in 2011, Bethesda Studios really revolutionized the game industry with the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, so let's talk about it. Here's the funny thing about the Elder Scrolls series. For one, this is actually the first time I've ever played Elder Scrolls. I really started with the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and here's the funny thing too. When I was a kid, I used to play Dungeons & Dragons a lot. Even though I didn't understand the complexities of the board game, I still liked it because I liked the fact that you can create your own characters, that you can create your own adventures. Essentially, it was kind of using your imagination as a kid. And here's the thing, guys. When I envisioned every time I would play Dungeons & Dragons, basically what Elder Scrolls V did for me was it visualized everything I had in my head in terms of imagination when it came to RPGs. The fact of the matter is, early on I was influenced by these roleplay games. Though they were rudimentary, D&D was still very complicated, and if you really knew what you were doing, you had a lot of fun. When I found out that the video game industry was transitioning into this genre, I was completely beside myself. Games like Final Fantasy, Mother, Star Ocean, Shin Megami Tensei, and Fire Emblem were amazing and very addictive. Now admittedly I took a really big break because things get in the way, life, college, etc., work, but I gotta tell you, when I returned in 2011 to the RPG genre, man, I was completely blown away, and essentially what Elder Scrolls V did is set a benchmark, a standard for Western RPGs, and it is hard to beat. Now, I've made this argument on this show several times, and the reason that I'm going to keep making it is because this yet again is another example of why we should remaster amazing and legendary games. More importantly, because we want to make sure that future generations get to play these games. Because, you know, it would be a shame if anybody missed out on this series, particularly Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, one of the reasons I really love this game was because there's freaking dragons in it, man. Almost immediately, I was fascinated by the story of Elder Scrolls V. Essentially, it's part of a lore that has been around for thousands of years. You are dragonborn. Essentially, you have the soul of a dragon, and you're here to complete or fulfill a prophecy to destroy an evil dragon called Alduin. Now, if that wasn't fascinating enough, that's just a 1% of the story in Skyrim. There are several other things to do. You can do side quests, you can do dungeon quests, just a number of things. And even when you think that you run out of things to do in Skyrim, basically scenarios or things pop up so you go off into your own storyline. Essentially, this reminds me of the kind of choose your own adventure books that I read when I was a kid. You can essentially do what you want in Skyrim. This title is one of the few games that actually lives up to the hype and is an open world in the truest sense. Without any inhibitors or any blocked or stupid walls or anything like that, you essentially play this game however you want. Now what I mean by that is that you can play this game very stealthy, something very similar to Metal Gear. Or, if you want, you can go balls to the wall and just start attacking everything full frontal. It's completely up to you. This level of versatility also applies to your combative abilities. Now, you can decide how you want to play this game in terms of your offense. You can be a mage and wield your power magical abilities, and you can dual wield them. You can have a thunderbolt in one hand, a healing ability in the other, or you can actually do it dual wielding and just have two abilities, thunderbolt and flames. Like I said, there's a lot of versatility here. Now, if you're not into magic, you can also use your blades or a bow and arrow. You can dual wield your blades as well, or you can use a giant great sword to pummel your enemies, or even an axe if you want. Like I said, this is one of the great things about this game, however you want to do it. But the level of depth doesn't just stop there, and one of the strengths of this game is that it has an excellent crafting system. What I mean by that is you can craft your own armor, you can enhance weapons, you can use potions, etc. There's a lot of things that you can do here. and if you're really good at it, I mean, you can be essentially unstoppable, and you really know how to take down enemies because of it. Now, let's say that you had no interest in being a mage and you wanted to be a full-on warrior that uses your blades. Well, that's cool, but you still have some magical abilities. Remember, you're dragonborn, so you're part dragon, which entitles you to a few magical abilities. Mostly these things called shouts or thooms. Now, there are a variety of them, and you can use them in different scenarios, but my favorite is being able to shout somebody into the next freaking village, for God's sakes. It's awesome, you never get tired of it. Now, apart from that minor annoyance of the dragons returning and a prophecy that could potentially destroy the world, there's also a civil war brewing between the Stormcloaks and the Imperials. And it's pretty fascinating. As a result, there are several factions that arise that are trying to take advantage of the situation. Again, this also offers a lot of flexibility and a lot of times determine the outcomes of some of those relationships. Now, you can join the Mages Guild, the Fighters Guild, the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood. You can either decide to be on the Imperial side or with the Stormcloaks, the Blades, and the Bard's College. So again, you have a lot of flexibility on how you want to paint your narrative. Without question, one of the strengths of the game, and something I really noticed when I played it again from 2011, is that encounters with enemies are completely random and come at any time, especially with the dragons. Now, you're going to encounter animals, you're going to encounter giants, sometimes mammoths, and even along the road, assassins that are trying to kill you, and it seems different every single time. Now, the one criticism that everybody has, myself included, about open world games is that even though they're massive in scale, they're completely devoid of life. Well, that's not the case here, and it's something that I noticed in other games like Mafia 3 and some various other titles, is that this game is so saturated with life, it's not even funny. You actually hear them off in the distance, you just feel like you're completely immersed. The other fantastic thing about this game is the cycles. You have a day and night cycle, which lasts a long time, just like it would in real life, and you also have some great weather and lighting effects, which is fantastic, especially in this remaster. They looked great back then, with the computer obviously being the superior port, but here it looks like the technology finally caught up in this remaster, and it looks absolutely amazing. Whether or not you're running in a forest, in a pine trees, you see a lot of light coming through, especially the god rays. But what I was most impressed with was the snowy areas. It made me feel like I was freezing my ass off. Textures in this remaster seem to pop for some reason. Now, I know that it's part of the remaster project, but my god, I mean, it's just very noticeable from when I played it back in 2011. I also like the fact that there's this kind of like dynamic effect where you can see things almost in 3D. It looks amazing. Now, the video is not doing it justice just because of the way that it uploads to YouTube, but I gotta tell you guys, it's really spectacular. It's something that if you didn't get to play it in PC, you're gonna really enjoy it now. It makes the world that much more immersive, and it really makes you stop and look at the beauty of Skyrim. You know, one other thing that I really noticed is basically the water effects, especially when you're next to a lake and it's just kind of running still. They've also added some interesting animations in terms of fireflies and bugs, and the way some of the water crests up against the shore. It looks really amazing. I definitely didn't notice this in 2011. It's part of the remaster, and I think it was expertly done. I would also stop and look at the aurora, the borealis above your head, especially the moon, and they've paid more critical and painstaking attention to this aspect that I actually just stopped the one time and literally looked at it for 5 minutes to see if there was any changing cycles, if any cloud effects would go through, and I sat there and looked at this happen in real time. It was absolutely amazing, and I gotta give kudos to the team at Bethesda for this remaster. It's not just the paint skin. It looks like they've gone in and changed several things from 2011, and that is amazing. That is just a high quality and worth your time to revisit this world. Now, one other great thing that was sorely needed in the original Skyrim was the fact that they've given a little bit more intelligence to the AI, which were frustratingly stupid at times. They would always get in the way of a pathway that you had to go through, or they would set off traps for no reason. It was just very frustrating. Now here, they're actually a little more refined, and I have to say, in terms of companionship, when you're going out on quests, if you do have an AI companion, they're actually a lot more helpful in terms of combating enemies and whatnot. So I'm glad they really did this. This was something that was very much needed. Ultimately, guys, Skyrim is absolutely amazing. It's definitely one of those games that really redefines the genre, and in many ways, it kind of set the tone for Western RPGs. Games that would follow really have a lot to live up to, and I can only think of one right now that is absolutely astounding and at least on par with this title, which is The Witcher 3. Now, one of the great things about games like this is that they allow for people to kind of like up their game in terms of what audiences want, so I'm glad that everybody gave this high praise. Even people who are new to this genre kind of got into it and really immersed themselves in this world, and that's one of the strengths of Skyrim. Now, it had been approximately 6 years since I played an Elder Scrolls adventure game, and, you know, I was really missing it. I didn't realize how much until I started playing the remaster. Yes, there was ESO, but it didn't have the same impact on me as Elder Scrolls V. Elder Scrolls V feels like coming home, like going and meeting up with a friend you haven't seen in a while, having some coffee, and talking about the old times. It just makes you feel good. So this title is an obvious one for newcomers, and for those who've already played through it, it's definitely worth another trip to Skyrim. Alright guys, so that's my official review on the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews.
It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's good to see you too, Esbern. It's been too long, old friend. Too long. Well, then. You made it safe and sound. Good. Come on, I have a place we can talk. Orgnar, hold down the bar for a minute, will you?